Okay, hello there and welcome to part 4 of our tutorial for Dominions 4. Now in this part we're going to be talking about recruitment, profits, army setup, scripting, formation, and finally we're going to see some battles. So now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into recruitment. So by getting into recruitment you press R. This is where we got to see all of our units last episode when we were looking at units, stats and commanders. And so now we get to choose what units we want to produce. Now, there are certain different kind of strategies for what you want to take. There's when you're setting up your army, what you usually want is you want a shield line at the front. You want units with shields that will be able to protect against enemy arrows fairly well, so they can absorb the arrow fire from the enemy troops. Behind them, you usually want your more damage-dealing units. You know, your more elite units, ones that maybe can't take an arrow as well as the other ones because maybe they don't have quite much armor, or they're so expensive you don't want them to take arrows. But they do more hand-to-hand damage and they're better at clearing things out. You know, they'd be something like our herdmen, for example. We wouldn't want them being on the front line because they'd be taking the most arrow fire out of everybody on our side of the battle. So, what we're going to do to start off with is we're going to recruit 4 javelinists. Now you might be thinking, why is that? Well, I quite like javelinists for early expansion because not only do they have a shield and an axe and they're pretty good in melee combat, they also have javelins, and they're, other than our stone throwers, our stone hurlers, they're really our only unit with any sort of range attack that isn't magic. So the javelins have a range of 20 and they do about 22 damage. I mean, they don't do as much damage as the stones, which do 30 damage, but the boulders only have a range of 6 tiles. So, in all honesty, a range of 20 is a lot better than a range of 6. Now, how many? We get 2 javelins in comparison to, I think it's 2 stones? Yeah. So we get the same number of same amount of ammunition. So the stones will do more damage, but we've got a higher range. So what this lets us do is it lets us build a couple of javelins. We're going to put them behind our, in front of our spearmen, because what we want them to do is just sort of run up and throw their spears and charge into the front. Our spearmen are going to be like our, even though they aren't quite as expensive as the javelinists, they are actually better in hand-to-hand combat. They have a higher protection value and they have a higher defense value. You've got to make sure whenever you're recruiting units, to always just go through their stats and see what's best for you. So yes, this is going to be our javelin units. We're going to get 4 of them, and then we're going to add them to our army. We're also going to recruit a Gaija. Here we are. Now if you want to repeat the recruitment, so you don't have to make the same recruitment over and over again, you can click the repeat recruitment button, and what that'll do is that'll repeat the recruitment at the start of the turn, so long as you have enough gold and enough resources to do so. We're not going to do that quite yet. That's for when you get kind of a bit later into the game and you want to make sure that your provinces are always recruiting like a certain number of units a turn, or a certain number of mages per turn, etc, etc. So yes, we're going to be recruiting the Gaija on the first turn because we want a mage to come out next turn that we can use for recruitment. If we try to recruit the Scratty or the Jarl, well, first of all, we couldn't recruit the Jarl because we won't have enough money, because we've spent a bit on javelins and also just more than 400 that we've started with. The Gaija is cheaper than the Scratty as well, and the Scratty also takes 2 turns to make rather than just the 1 turn the Gaija does. Now the Gaija is old age, so that's going to be a bit annoying, but hey ho, that's fine. Right. So now we're going to go on to profits, which are like our closest tie to the world. It's our god's mortal representative on this plane of existence. So what we're going to do is we're going to take Ari, who's our like commander. You start off with 1 commander and a spy usually when you start the game. So what we're going to do is we're going to take Ari, who's going to be our commander, and he's going to become our prophet. And we're going to go into what prophets can do next turn when he becomes a prophet, because becoming a prophet takes an action. Every commander can take 1 action per turn. Now this can be to move, or in this case sneak, or they can attack, they can move about the place, they can patrol, They can just sit there and defend, you know, not really do anything. They can pillage, they can hide if they're stealthy. You can empower them, they can construct buildings, all that jazz, and we'll get into that in a bit. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have Ratastock, or Ratask Ox, not sure how to say that name. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have him sneak into this farmland here, because this farmland looks like it could be a really good spot for us to start to advance. And also, we're going to start recruiting, I think we're going to start recruiting, or not recruiting, sorry, researching enchantment. Enchantment and a little bit of construction, and then we're going to go on to evocation. Like so. Okay, so now when you've done all your turn, one thing I'd recommend for new players, if you go into the options and go into your preferences, you want to use warn on end turn. So now what I'll do is I'll give you a warning if you've forgotten about some of your commanders. I find this is really useful for newer players because it's like, definitely when I was new, you'd be doing so much at once, you just kind of forget you'd left somebody to do something really important, just forget about them for like 2 or 3 turns, you'd be like, oh shit, I was supposed to do that. So in reality, you want to make sure you have that on when you're just starting. It'll make your life a whole lot easier. And also, if you want to do that manually, you can just click N for the next idle commander, and it'll cycle through them. When it doesn't cycle through them anymore, that means there's nobody left idle, and that's if you want to do it manually. So let's press the end turn button, or E, and it will generate the new turn. So this is what it looks like. So, a proclamation from Niflheim. Ari the Jotun Hearse shall here be known as the prophet of Loki. Isn't that cool? And so, after the first turn, we get a little view of everybody around us. Any kind of neighbouring provinces to yours are usually okay scouted. Like, they're not going to be as good as a scout as this one, for example. Okay, we'll get into that in a second. So with the scout there, you can see more than you previously would be able to, just because of the fact you've got, you know, better vision coverage. I'm just having a look around. Now, from this is a very important thing of how you're going to start your expansion, because you've got to think how strong your units are. Can they go on unit turn 1? I don't usually recommend going on turn 1 to increase your borders, because you don't know, like we didn't see last turn, how many troops there were on each province. So for example, I would have gone straight to this grassland, which actually has militias and heavy cavalry. Heavy cavalry are the worst thing you can go against, other than elephants, or any kind of like undead throne army, when you're trying to expand into independence. What you want is very weak things like deer tribes. Even the Amazonians and Jade Maidens are pretty weak. They're not completely weak. Barbarians are deceptively strong, unless you have a lot of range units. If you have a lot of range units, you can quite safely take out barbarians, but in melee they can be quite dangerous. So yes, I think what we're going to do is we're going to start moving into Remesia. And that's going to be it's going to be the way we're going to expand. So we're going to recruit 4 more javelinists, and then we're going to recruit another Gaija. Gaija Angerboda. Angerboda is just going to be sitting there and researching. Now, what I was going to say, prophets. Let's go into our prophet. Ari, the prophet you see here, he's become the prophet. Now the prophets are pretty cool because they take any unit and they automatically raise it to a holy level 3. Now, if they were already a holy level 3 or above, then they get a +1 to their holy skill. This makes them incredibly powerful holy mages. You'll almost never be able to recruit a holy 3 mage, and it really depends. I guess it depends on the race. You can recruit holy 3 in some places, like for example our best one we can get is actually a priest level 2 or a holy 2. Same for a goad. You can get random events that give you like level 4s, level 5s. In fact, is there a level 5? I think there might be one level 5. It might be like Calum or something like that. Early age Calum I think is a level 5. Don't quote me on that. But yes, almost no race has a natural Holy 4 recruit available. Some have got Holy 3s, in fact quite a few have got Holy 3s. Thinking of things like Atlantis, early age Atlantis, the Basalt Queens or Kings. They are very powerful priests, but they're also very, very expensive. So we're only able to recruit level 2 priests, and that's fine, that'll do you. You don't really need a level 3. As long as you got your prophet there, that's fine, that'll do. So let's press T and go into the army setup screen. This is our army setup screen here. And this is where you can start to organize your armies, your squads, give them scripting, give your commander scripting, and you know, just basically everything in line. So we can see here we've got 2 squads led by Ari, the hearse, 1 squad of 5 spearmen and 1 squad of 5 javelinists. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on our units. If you click once, it selects that unit. If you double click, it selects all units of that type. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all our units and put them in our javelinist squad. Now what that happens is this makes our squad quite a bit bigger. Now we're going to set our battlefield order as attack, because they'll automatically move towards the enemy and fire their javelins when they can. So that's what we've done there. And we've also told them, you know, this is their formation screen, so you get to choose if they're in a box formation, line formation, sparse line, double line, or skirmish formation. All that really does is affect the spacing of the units. If the units are undisciplined, they can only fight in skirmish formation. And if they are not formation fighters, then if they're fighting in anything other than, I think, box or skirmish formation, in fact, I think the skirmish formation? Okay, so if they're undisciplined, then they can only fight in skirmish formation. If they are disciplined, but they don't have formation fighter special ability, then they can only fight in the box formation, otherwise they take a 1 morale hit to the squad. It doesn't sound like much, but it can be quite a bit, depending on how brave your individual units are. So yeah, we're just going to have everybody sit here. You've got shortcuts for everything here, so like A is for attack, F is for fire, G is for guard, H is for hold and attack. I think that's K? No, I can't actually remember. So yeah, fire and keep distance. I can't remember what the order is, or the shortcut is for that. But what happens is, if you do that, then it's just attack, and they will attack the closest enemies available to them. You can specifically say what enemies you like. So for example, you could say specifically attack the enemy archers first, and they'll just run straight for the archers. Specifically, or until they reach another enemy unit. Specifically target the cavalry. If there are no archers or cavalry, then they will attack the nearest unit. Enemy flyers, large monsters, closest enemy, or rearmost enemies. Rearmost squads, they are usually their commanders, and that's really good to have for things like mounted units or flying units, because what you can do is you can have them hold their position for 2 turns using the hold and attack option, and then get them to attack the rearmost enemies, and then they will sort of, you know, if they're cavalry, they'll try and flank around, especially if you put them on the flank, then they'll run straight for the commanders and they'll try and take them out. That's why you've got to kind of like, the formation screen doesn't seem that important, but it can be. You've got to have a nice long line of shield units. Usually you want your shield units to be in a line, just because then they stop anybody from getting to your sort of squishier further back units. So for now, we're just going to have them attack and have no preference for our spearmen, and what we're going to do is we're going to put them slightly behind our javelinists. And what they'll both do is they're both going to charge the enemy. The javelins are going to throw the javelins. They're going to be attack first, and the spearmen are going to come in and they're basically going to mop up. So now for Ari, when it comes to commanders, you get a slightly more in-depth version. So remember how we only had those main orders before? Now we've actually got single round orders as well, and you can script the first 5 rounds completely. They will do exactly what you tell them for the first 5 rounds, and then after the first 5 rounds, they will stick to their main order. So what we're going to have to Ari do is we're going to make his main order to cast spells. So he's going to mostly just sit behind everyone and just cast spells. I'm going to have a wee sip of my coffee right now. Ah dear, I can feel my throat starting to get a bit dry. It's always good to make sure that you're well hydrated when you're speaking for a long time, and especially at this speed. So yes, we're going to have him mostly cast spells. We don't have to worry about his gem usage, because holy spells neither have any fatigue, nor do they have any gem usage. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have him cast a specific spell, which is going to be Divine Blessing. I'm still not sure if Divine Blessing gives a 1 morale unit or 1+ morale bonus to every single squad, even if they aren't sacred. I'm not sure. Honest to God, I'm not sure. And we don't want to attack from 1 turn. So there, he's going to cast Divine Blessing, and then what we want him to cast is 2 rounds of Sermon of Courage. Now these are both spells, so Divine Blessing is the same as a Blessing, except it affects all whole units on the entire battlefield. So I don't think it does affect normal units, but you don't know. Sometimes they lie. Sometimes the spell tips lie, and it's best to kind of do your own research on the internet. Ask people, especially on things like the forums or the subreddit for Dominions, or if you go into the general on VG, that kind of thing. You know, and if you ask around or if you just lurk, you'll eventually you'll learn a lot more about the game. Okay, so Sermon of Courage. So for a radius of 10 squares, up to a range of 17 as well, so they can cast up to 17 squares away, and that'll be the center, and then 10 squares around that, 10 squares radius. All the soldiers in that radius will have their morale increased by, I think it's 1? Yeah. So all soldiers have their morale increased by 1. And that's an amazing spell. It keeps your troops fighting for so much longer, and that's really going to help your early expansion. So now that we have our 14 units ready and waiting, what we're going to do is we're going to send Ari down into these woods. We don't have a reliable estimate of the number of troops, but we've got a fairly good one, and we're actually going to keep Rataskosk in this province here, so you can keep an eye on how many troops there are. If there's actually about 20 troops, or if there's more like 10, and from that we'll be able to see what's going to happen. Now, unfortunately, we do not have enough money to recruit another Gaija, unless we get rid of one of our javelins. So that's what we're going to do, because we want to make sure we have enough mages. You usually want to be pumping out at least one mage per turn. Now, you know, you might not be able to keep that up depending on your income and your expenditure, but try as a main thing. And also, most races mages aren't quite as expensive as Niflheims. Niflheim mages are pretty expensive, 225. You sometimes can get a lot cheaper ones that are about as research effective for their gold. So anyway, we're going to end the turn here, and we're going to show off the battles and show off what that means. And then after, oh, there's a proclamation from Pelagia. So we're actually against the Pelagians. So that's good to know. So let's view our battle. You can view your battles at the end of a turn, by which point the battle's already happened. That's actually a lot more troops than I thought there were. It's okay. I think our oh, okay, that was a very big charge from the enemy. But hopefully we're all right. There's only one way to find out. Come on, troops, you can do it. Oh, I think we might actually lose this battle. That'd be really annoying. Yeah, you can speed up the battle using these 3 speeds. You can also quit the battle anytime by pressing Q. You can get more in-depth things by pressing certain different buttons. Oh, okay, we actually managed to rout them. I think we managed to kill their commander there. It's really useful. We took a lot of losses from these Jade Maidens. We didn't maybe give them quite as much of a level of respect as they maybe deserved. But yeah, that's the battle. You can see the battle results by just clicking on the thing here. So we actually lost 6 of our javelinists. That's a lot of javelinists to be losing on the first conquest. But then again, we were against 7 Jade Maidens. We did manage to kill all of them. We were against sorcerers and a priestess. So that's us taking over Remesia. And that's wonderful. And I think, to be honest, this is going to be the end of the tutorial series. From this point onwards, I'm actually going to be playing this game as an actual Let's Play, as a sort of a first game walkthrough, just kind of show everybody, you know, what you can do. It's still going to, because it's just going to be leading on from the tutorial. Hopefully, it'll help you learn how you know you can transition it into the early, mid, and late game. But this is going to be less of me just sitting here and talking about various mechanics, but hopefully actually showing you these mechanics and showing like how interesting Dominions can actually be. So thank you for sitting through my tutorial. I hope you've all enjoyed this. If you have, please leave a like or subscribe. And I hope to see you here for the next one. But until then, goodbye.